Healing is never a destination, and it comes with the same with sobriety. I think another thing that I don't hear often about sobriety is the grief, like the grief of losing your old self. I don't look back and think of what I've been through as negative anymore. Talk about guilt, because that was something that was hard for me. And I still do have moments. If you're on this journey right now and you're wanting to become sober or you're questioning it, you will have days where it's harder than others. Welcome to Life Biz and All That Jazz, the podcast where real talk meets transformation. If you're navigating your mental health, healing from trauma, or wanting to build a life that actually feels like yours, then this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jasmine Lisciotto, and each week we dive into real topics, raw conversations. You'll either be just with myself as a solo episode like this one, or you'll be hearing from our amazing guests from all over the world. If you're new here, welcome to the ride. Buckle in. It's going to be a fun one. Transformational, you can say as well, but also just eye-opening, and you're going to learn a lot about yourself. If you've come back for more, thank you for coming back for more. I appreciate you so much, and I can't wait to share more with you throughout the rest of the year. Today's podcast may include conversations that are sensitive or emotionally triggering. We will be discussing sobriety and my journey to get here. So I just want to say that to begin with, listen with care, take breaks if you need, and remember to always put your well-being first. First off, I am now 2 years sober. If you told me this 5, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, I would have laughed, because I'd love to have a drink. I did love to have a drink. I loved to party. I loved to socialize. But little did I know that I could have just as much fun without drinking. So that's where we're at now. We are 2 years sober. So I really just wanted to kind of touch on my journey and just share with you things that I've learned along the way, because it has been a very emotional, eye-opening, grieving, heartbreaking loss. I could keep naming the feelings that I have felt over the last 2 years of my sobriety journey all day. But we don't have all day. So I will try and make sure I can get this all in to one episode, because you know how much I love to talk. I want to start with what was happening in my life before sobriety. When I first lost Dad is when I started to drink on my own. That's when I would drink at nighttime, have a wine or two. So sometimes it was just once or twice a week, or, you know, sometimes I might have a wine every night of the week. Then on the weekends, depending what I was doing, most of the time I would have been going out, partying, probably partying for a few days. I did used to sleep. Most of the times I would sleep in between, but then I'd wake up the next day and be like, yay, it's the weekend, let's go. I still worked. I always still worked. I studied. I was one of those high functioning alcoholics, and I don't call myself an alcoholic in a way. I was a high functioning binge drinker, and it's been really hard for me to see if I fit into that category of an alcoholic or an addict. I know that I wasn't your typical alcoholic where I would be drinking in the morning, drinking all day. I could go periods without drinking, but I would have to be challenging myself. And then that's something that we're going to talk about shortly, is the reward system and dopamine. We'll chat on that soon. But pretty much going back to where I was talking about, like before I decided to stop drinking, I'm going to get a little bit comfy because I'm so excited to have my lounge in here again and record from here, because it's so much more comfortable. Thanks to my mum going on holidays, I can fit in here. 28, started noticing my drinking patterns then were unhealthy. I just lost my dad to suicide. Fair enough. I didn't have the coping mechanisms to know how to deal with it. I'd never dealt with anything that tragic in my life. I always bottled things up. I felt like I had to be strong. I had to be the strong one. I never wanted to burden my family members, and tell them how I was really feeling. I just numbed the pain and got on with life because that's what everyone was doing. Everyone around me was doing the same things, just drinking and partying. No one really talked about like the deeper sides to life. Like I had good friends and family, but I just wasn't putting in that work to be a better me. I was just like coasting through life because at the time that was all I knew. When I turned 30, that's when I was like, all right, I'm 30 now. I'm single, and thought, okay, I have to try and slow down a little bit, get healthier. I have to think about buying a property. I also was doing some more studies. So I was doing my master's and just like kind of navigating that next decade of my life. I did try a few times to, like, I did a few alcohol-free challenges, which were interesting, but I always would come back to drinking and partying. And like I said, that was just what everyone around me was doing. That was what we did. So probably got into like 30. And then I also, like, my 30th, I was like, I'm 30, like, exciting, next decade. I went on a solo Europe trip. So that's the thing as well. Like, I think I just never really noticed it was a problem because I was still ticking all the boxes off. Like, I was traveling, I went to uni, I eventually bought my apartment. Like, I was still doing everything, that I planned to do. I just wasn't living up to my full potential, which now I know. So that's why I share this, because if someone told me back then, like, really, that what I was doing and how I was drinking wasn't normal and that it was a problem, then things could have been different. So all I can do now, I can't do anything about that. I can't go back, but I can share my journey to help you. So I did a few more challenges. Like at 33, I did another 75-day challenge. That went great. I'd always do the challenge and I wouldn't want to drink after. Like, I would actually be so excited and feel so good within myself after doing the 75 days that I didn't want to drink. But it was just that the events were there, people I was around was there. And so I just did. I just drank again because that's kind of all I knew. And then again, that would fall into the patterns of that was how I would get my dopamine hit and feel joy. And the weekends we'd have fun. And at night, if I was stressed after a big day, I would come home and have a wine. Then we got to 34. And at the time I was in a relationship, it was serious and we were talking about the future and everything. And then I had some health issues that I needed to look into. So after having an ectopic pregnancy, I looked at everything to do with my body. I got my breast implants taken out. I really focused on my health and started that journey. But then I had the breakup from that relationship. And that's when things kind of like spiraled. And I was drinking a lot more because I was using that was my coping mechanism to deal with pain. Again, that's kind of all I knew. And again, still doing the things. I had my own business then, so I was working at home and it was never seen as anything different, but it got to a point where I was like, no, I was relying on it too much. And it got to like a nightly thing. And because I was living on my own, I think it just spiraled out of control. Well, not I think, it did. It spiraled out of control. And I got to a point one night, I just was like, what are you doing? I literally said to myself, I had this weird thing. It still like is hard for me to understand, but I had this feeling come over me and I just woke up. And I was like drunk, and then the next day I woke up and I thought, I'm not drinking anymore. And at the start, so this is when I was 35, so 2 years ago now, and I thought, you deserve better. You can have better. And then something just literally switched and didn't drink again. And now I'm 2 years in. And I think it's really interesting to think too, because I started drinking socially when I was 15, after my mum and dad broke up, a very traumatic breakup with the fire and my dad's first major suicide attempt, that was like what pushed me into underage drinking and dealing with things in the wrong way, not knowing how to cope. And that pattern just obviously continued for 20 years. I think I'm one of the lucky ones. I really do. And even though that I be hard on myself and I'm like, well, if you stopped earlier, life would be different now. I know that I was lucky that I had people around me that still kept me connected with reality in a way. And I always had that fire inside me and that drive to not let it take over me fully in a way that I wouldn't work, or I would drink in the mornings and, like become like that full typical alcoholic. So I do feel like I was lucky because I still ticked everything off. I think one of the things I look back on now is I know my relationship with myself, which was the reflection of my relationship with partners, would be a lot different, but that's something that I've accepted, and I know now who I am is so much better, and I've learned so much more going through what I went through. So I don't look back and think of what I've been through as negative anymore. I really look at it as empowering, and that I got through it, that I got through all the hard times in my life, all the traumatic times in my life, and I am where I am today. And I can look back and just be grateful that everything that I went through taught me everything that I know today, and have that resilience and understanding and awareness, and like just actually really like myself. Like I love spending time on my own, and I never used to like spending time on my own. I know that what I've created for myself now, my life and who I am, that I won't let anyone into that until they can complement that. I don't need someone in my life, a partner. I want that. So I think it's that shift of mindset from how I used to think to now is really remarkable and exciting. So that's pretty much what life was like, obviously leading up to stopping drinking, and then now I'm 2 years sober. I think with the start of it, what was hard was the feeling and healing years and years of built up trauma, like losing my dad, especially when my mum and dad broke up, like when I was 15. And then obviously through my 20s, like with my dad's multiple episodes, my own relationships, toxic relationships, things that I'd bottled down and pushed away and just like kind of just got on with life. I think that was what was the hardest part. It wasn't not drinking, because we'll touch on why I used to drink later on. It was a very weird type of thing, and that relates to dopamine again. But pretty much the hardest part was like having to live through and actually deal with so much pushed down trauma and so much pain and guilt and shame, and like relearning who I was and accepting and giving myself forgiveness. Because at the first few months, I think, is when I really dealt with losing my dad. It was like a whole new level of release and pain, and I was just like crying for weeks and weeks, and I was living on my own at the time. So that was really, really difficult. I tried to get help and the support that I could, but most of the time it was really just me dealing with it alone. And I think in the end that was the best way to do it, because I really dealt with things properly. I didn't allow other people's perceptions or other people's suggestions or opinions come into the way that I was healing. Like I healed exactly how I needed to heal for me. So now you understand the feelings, what I had to deal with, the emotions that come up. And I want to talk about guilt, because that was something that was hard for me. And I still do have moments where I think about it now, because I see how much progress I've had in 2 years when I stopped drinking to now. I think like, where would I be now if stopped drinking sooner? And that's okay to think, because I have high expectations for myself, and I always have. And I think that's what's kind of kept me at a certain level. And I'm always doing more than what I should be doing, but that's how I like to live. Like I have my business, I have the podcast, I'm doing the graduate certificate for uni, then like I have gym. I don't really have much spare time around that. And then I'm also like constantly like researching, thinking of new side hustles or new things that I can implement into my business. Having that high expectation of myself also means that sometimes my mind will wander and I will think about the shame and the guilt. And I've learnt to know that that's okay. It's okay if my mind thinks like that, but doesn't mean that it's right. And it's really like every time that I have a thought or a feeling that I do feel shame or guilt and think, oh, if only I started sooner, like if only I started sooner, I come back and think, well, you started. And that's the main thing. And that's what it comes back to. And it's not really common for someone in their 30s to quit drinking for the rest of their life. Like, I can't say I'll never drink again because that's in the future. But where I'm at right now, I don't see it as a possibility that I will. I think learning so much about what it does to the brain, what it does to our organs, and what it does to someone with ADHD to start with and mental health, that has overturned what I used to get on it. There's no pros to drinking for me anymore. It's all cons. So I just don't see myself ever drinking again. But anyway, like I said, that's something that you can't see into the future, but that's just how I feel now. So I guess it's also coming back to like that time lost and what I was saying about like I stopped drinking at 35. It's not a common thing for people to not drink at 35. So I really sit back and I think, you're only 35 when you stop. Like, you're only 37 now. And it's so easy to compare to society because, yes, at 37, most people that I know have families, they're married, they've got kids. Most of my friends had kids in their 20s or like early 30s. But then I also have friends that have had kids in their late 30s or early 40s. So I'm kind of always been in the middle of that. So to me, being 37 right now and being single and not having kids, I don't feel like I am behind because I know that I've still got so much life to live and it's going to be so exciting because I've done that work. And if I didn't stop drinking, I wouldn't have done the work. I would have just kept like feeling that emptiness inside and not having dealt with the trauma. And I would have just coasted through life. Yeah, I would have probably ticked off whatever, my goals for the future, more travel, van life, all that stuff, and done a lot of things. But I don't think I would have had that relationship that I know that I'm going to have in the future and the family that I'm going to have if I didn't stop drinking and do the work, because I just know exactly what I want and who I am as a person, the work that I've done and the person that I am today, I know will attract that. And you need to become who you want to attract in the end. So the shame and the guilt of not starting sooner is easy to remove when you realize that you started. You just started. You made that choice and you started. And I think that's what's really, really important is you made the first step. And that's what I say to myself now to help me get through that. As I mentioned before, like becoming sober at 35, I thought it was late. This is kind of touching on what I just mentioned, but I thought it was late. There's so many Facebook groups and sobriety pages that I'm a part of, and even Instagram people that I follow that are like late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they've just decided to get sober. And bless them. Like, I don't want to put anything towards in a negative aspect towards them to say, look, I started at 35, like they started at a certain age, but it's more what they've commented on my post. So a lot of the groups that I'm a part of, we do like little moments and celebrations because you need to have that. You need to have someone that you relate to, and I don't know anyone in my close circle or like my family that doesn't drink alcohol and I can relate to on that deeper level. I am so blessed and have the best family and friends. There's just different things and there's certain things that I can relate to them, but most of my healing journey and my sobriety journey and like my personal growth journey, most of the people that I relate to and like really connect with is people that I have met through the podcast, people that I've met online, people that I've met through like community groups. It's really, really interesting because it does feel alone when you decide to make decisions like this. But then when you do feel alone, you kind of break through that. And as I said before, I love spending time on my own. Like, it's like my favorite thing to do. I just love like having a shower and putting my hair up, putting some comfy pajamas on at the end of the day and jumping into my bed with my fairy lights on and just watching something on my laptop or just chilling out. And while I do love company, it's like there's nothing beats me having my alone time. And I know that, again, has to do with my ADHD because I need that to recharge, because I know the more time I spend alone, the better I am when I am with people, or the better I show up when it comes to my business or when it comes to the podcast or life tasks in general, and regulating my nervous system. So the milestones that we post on these groups, I never posted my age on them because they're public groups. And I guess I'm saying it on the podcast anyway, and this is public, but pretty much with the groups posting on there, people just commented like, you look really young. How lucky, how blessed that you became sober so young and stuff like that. And I never really thought about things, and it's just really inspiring for myself, but then also for other people to know that they're still giving it a go, no matter what age you are in life. They're still giving it a go and they're still trying to become better people. And I think that's something that we can all learn from, is that it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what stage in life you are. Like, you can always change. You can wake up tomorrow and you can be someone else. You can be a better person. So age should never be a limitation. As we do get older, I do know it does get harder. And we think, well, like, time is on the lesser end. And I kind of have that thought sometimes too. But then I think, well, when I meet my future husband, like, I know it's going to be soon, and I'm putting myself out there obviously more. I can't deal with the dating apps, but, going on holidays, traveling, like putting myself in situations where I would want to meet someone. Actually, I think I heard it of someone say something, but if you meet your partner halfway through your life, you still have half your life to spend with them. And it's also less likely that you'll get divorced, which is a bit funny, but not as well, I guess. Sorry if anyone's been divorced. I think another thing that I don't hear often about sobriety is the grief, like the grief of losing your old self. Because I did love a party. Like, I love to have fun. I love to dance and sing and girls' holidays and all that stuff. And it's like, sometimes I'll have like a thought, especially in summer. I never have an urge to drink, but I do think about things when I am at certain places, be like, oh, like, like just a laugh, like catch up with friends and just have a Prosecco and, just get all tipsy and bubbly. It's really weird. It's really hard to explain, because I didn't really have that for like the first year. I was just like, no, I'm never going to drink. But I still know that I won't drink. But now it's just like, I've just had a few like things come up and it's made me think that. And that's okay, because you need to really be aware of that and know that, okay, well, that's how I'm thinking. That doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen, and really removing yourself from that. It's also like, the grief is also about like rebuilding that new person and learning who you are all over again. Because for myself, the sobriety journey also meant dealing with a lot of trauma, dealing with a lot of conditioning, a lot of unlearning, a lot of negative beliefs that I had, was like removing them and creating new beliefs and new values, and really getting clear on what I want from life and the way I want to spend my day, the way that I know that how I spend today and how I have spent the last 5 years since I started my business has really got me to where I am today. And I think that was a whole process as well, because I've obviously started my business 5 years ago. I still drank alcohol then, but I didn't really have much traction at the start. Like, it was going great and it was fine. But then like the last 2 years, where I've grown it to be and what I'm doing now and how I can service my clients and really take everything to the next level and earn the money that I want to earn, it was a whole process of learning me again and how I'm going to navigate the life that I want. So there's like that part of like grieving your old self, and then you're also learning your new self, which was interesting but fun. And now it's fun to look back at, which is like a big part of why I wanted to do this episode, was like a reflection of where I was, where I am now, and where I'm going. I think another thing is as well is like to release that pressure that it's a destination. Healing is never a destination. And it comes with the same with sobriety. Like you will have days where it's harder than others, and you may think it's just easier to just have a drink. Like if you're on this journey right now and you're wanting to become sober, or you're questioning it, or you're sober curious, or, you know, you've been sober for a few months or a few years and you're kind of at this peak or like a trough, you know, like peak and troughs. That's what I'm referring to. You're kind of like at a trough and you're at a point where you're like questioning it. But I think you just need to know that like it's lifelong and you're still learning, and that's so fine. I think that's one of the most powerful and empowering things about life, is that we're always going to be learning, and we always have that chance to be better and change and have the growth and understanding. Sobriety isn't a finish line, but it's also the foundation to who you are going to become. Like that's just one part. Like not drinking and being sober is like the foundation, and then you get to build everything on top of that. So it's really just getting the foundation right and knowing that you can stick to it, and having the coping mechanisms to be able to stick to it. The tools, the support is the first step. And I guess like really, this is why I share what I do. Like I'm not aspiring to be a sober coach or anything like that. I think I just really share what I share because I know how hard it can be to be trying to navigate life and do all the things, especially being high functioning and, you know, suffering with my mental health for years, that I'm at a point now where it's just so far from what I used to be. And I've come so far and dealt with a lot of trauma that just sharing is like light for me, but then also with the aim that no one will ever feel alone, and that you'll always know that someone is there, whether it's myself. And that's why I bring the guests on, because it might not be me that you relate to, but maybe one of my guests you will relate to. So that's always something to think about with these episodes, is that one episode you might not relate to, but I do have a lot of different guests coming on this season, which is really exciting, because I really want them to be different, and to also just to help people see that there is so many options for healing out there that they might not have ever understood or really known about. So there's just a lot, and that's what I want to share. Now let's talk about the dopamine and ADHD and alcohol links. So it's only been like recently that I have really understood dopamine, like ADHD and alcohol links, because I obviously knew that the way that I drank wasn't like fully dependent on the alcohol. It was more dependent on the reward. So for me, the reward after a busy day and stressful day was a wine. And that was a habit. That became a habit for me. But when I was doing the 75 days, I didn't need the wine, but I still had the reward of ticking off that day, off my 75 countdown. So it was like my brain was tricking itself into, well, not tricking itself, but with the ADHD brain, we run off a dopamine reward system. The alcohol, having a wine and ticking off and working towards the 75-day goal still worked the same. And I just think it's so fascinating now to look at that and look back and to think that it was just really my dopamine coping mechanism. It wasn't the actually addiction to the alcohol. And it can happen for anything with ADHD. So, for example, today I'm recording all my podcasts and I really want to watch a movie, but I had to do client work in between the podcasts, and I can only watch a movie once I've done all what I need to do, and then I've got to clean the house. So like I give myself little dopamine rewards, and that works fine. Like a movie is now my new dopamine reward instead of a wine. Yeah, maybe it's not the best for my eyes, and maybe I could be doing something else. But when I've just spent my whole day working and doing the podcast, like that's my little treat, and it's so much more healthier. I'll probably have something sweet as well. So much more healthier than having alcohol. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch on when it comes to alcohol links with ADHD. I'm still learning more about this, but it's really, really fascinating. And that's obviously the reward system. Then we have what alcohol does to our hedonic set point. When we drink alcohol, we get this influx of dopamine. So it's a high that's higher than anything else. The same thing as if you take drugs. It's a certain high that our body doesn't naturally produce. So our hedonic set point gets raised higher and higher and higher. So every time we want to receive joy or be happy, it's harder for us to reach it. So how do we reach it? Well, we need to have that shoot of highness, shoot of dopamine. And the only way you can get that is from alcohol or drugs or an ice bath. So an ice bath is actually equivalent to doing a line of sea. I won't actually say it. But no one knew about ice baths back in the day. That's like a new thing now where like people are getting high off ice baths, and it's amazing. And it's really, really exciting that that's kind of where the world is going to. Coming back to my discussion on it, once your hedonic set point is at a certain point, you will not feel joy with little things anymore. Like you won't feel joy with music. You won't feel joy with hanging out with friends maybe and just doing nothing. Like there's so many things that you will be doing and you won't feel that joy with anymore because your hedonic set point is so high that it's unachievable to reach in a natural setting with things that used to be naturally happy and make you feel joy. Once you stop drinking, I think it's about the 1 month mark that like your hedonic set point becomes level again to a normal place. Then you'll start to feel joy. So that's what happened with me is like music. Like I love music now. I used to love music on a night out, but it was different. Well, you'd be drunk and you'd be dancing. But then now it's just like little things like coloring in. I love to color in, gardening, like tidying up, like just there's so many little simple things that I do now. Going for a walk, sitting outside in the sun. That's just few to name a few, but there's so many little things that I do now that I can get joy from, and it's free and it's easy to do. And it just sounds so easy now for me to talk about it. But I know in your circumstances, like if you are either thinking about drinking or like right at the start of it, I do know that you're not going to be thinking the same because right now you're not able to feel joy from little simple things because you're really just trying to deal with having no alcohol to drink. Or right now you could also be knowing that alcohol is the only way you feel joy. And I understand that because that's something that I did for years and it got into a habit, and you just don't realize it. We don't realize what the habit that we're in is so negative for our bodies, for our mind, because it's so accepted and it's done everywhere. But then you do stop and you do get to a point where you look back and you'll be like, I did it. I am 2 years sober. And that's where I'm at now. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to share today. If you're listening still this far, thank you for listening. I'm excited to see like where the future goes with my sobriety journey, and knowing that each day my brain is back to kind of where it should be right now, and my organs and stuff as well. And that's something as well is when I first started, I joined an app called Reframe, and it was really, really good because it just taught me so much about what alcohol does to the brain. And every day that I wasn't drinking, it would tell me what my body was doing. And then that's what kind of kept pushing me to go past the 75 days, because originally it was like another challenge. Then I just kept going. And what it told me about my organs, my brain, sleep, there's so many things that it talks to you about. And then that's when like that overturns that urge and that coping mechanism that you need to go back to drinking, that safety net. So that's something as well that you could think about is downloading an app. Another one, a really good one, is I Am Sober. Reframe you have to pay for. I think they have a trial period, but I Am Sober is free. That's what I use now, and that's more just to track my progress. I look at it every now and then, but yeah, I don't look at it daily or anything now. I kind of just get to points where I'm like, oh, I wonder how long it's been. And I knew in August the 2 years was coming up, so I had a look to see what date it was, and then I put that in my calendar, which was fun, so I could celebrate that. But pretty much that's where I want to end today's episode. So thank you so much for listening. I just want you to remember that it's all about progress, not perfection. You are not broken. You are becoming. And I will see you next week.